Um, Pranams to Swami Atmarupananda ji, pranams to Mataji, and namaskars to everybody. I thoroughly enjoyed this session on Holy Mother's Advaita with all the anecdotes and the insights. You know, that's the living thing. There's a difference between a real creature, you know, in its natural habitat, and when you go to the Museum of Natural History and see a fossil. So there's a difference between that. And unfortunately, what you're going to see now is the fossil, the philosophy, the dry, bare bones of it now. But still, that work has to be done, the intellectual work. The work which we started yesterday has to be completed today. Today is the question of God in Advaita Vedanta. The topic is Tat, as Mataji said, in Tat Tvam Asi, you are that. So you or I, we are that. What is that? And that in Advaita is, is Brahman. At a first pass, it is God. Now, a question might be raised here is, can't you do Advaita without talking about God all over again? In classical Advaita, the answer is straight away, no, you cannot. If you look at the original texts, the Upanishads, the Bhagavad Gita, the Brahma Sutra, they are all full of references to what is technically called Saguna Brahman, Brahman with attributes, or to put it very simply, God. So they're full of attributes. God is there everywhere across the Advaita texts. But you might have noticed that I left a little leeway. I said in classical Advaita, no. There are forms of Advaita where you can bypass the whole God question and reach non-duality. Texts like Ashtavakra, for example, the Avadhuta Gita, some parts of the Yoga Vashishta, they do not really consider the question of God directly. They seem to go from, I am pure consciousness and it is infinite and non-dual. That's it. Or you go to a teacher like Ramana Maharshi or many of the direct path teachers today who are sort of the descendants of Ramana Maharshi, I would say. So they do not directly take up the question of God. They seem to investigate into who we are and then reach the non-duality. So that's also possible. But in classical Advaita, we must be very clear. In classical Advaita, Upanishads, Bhagavad Gita, Brahma Sutra, commentaries by Shankaracharya, the other Advaita texts by Shankaracharya, and afterwards, they are full of references to God. And the text that we have taken up now, that thou art, God is very present there as that. The literal meaning of the sentence is, you are that, and that means God. So you are God, which if you take it that way, it doesn't make much sense. It's, and we'll see, for you know, at the first pass, literal meaning, you are God or I am God, is just blasphemy. It's just crazy to say a thing like that, I am God. We'll see why it doesn't make any sense. We'll see that. And then we'll see how it makes sense. And then we will reach non-duality. And why at all are we doing this? Yesterday, we investigated the word Tvam, you. And when we investigated the word you, we found that you are not the body, you are not the mind. You know, the literal meaning of the word you is this person with body and mind. But when we investigate it, we see why we are not the body. The body is there, but I am not the body. The mind is there, but I am not the mind. I am the awareness to which mind and body appear, to which the mind and body could be instruments for experiencing a world, interacting with the world, but you are not the body mind, nor are the problems of the world or the body or the mind your problems. That seems to solve the problem, but actually it does not. Why does it not do so? If you consider it deeply enough, what Advaita Vedanta is trying to do is, it starts with us, with you or I, and then tries to show that I, which cannot be denied, I exist. And a little investigation will show me this I which exists is awareness. That also doesn't really require Upanishads or anything like that. I mean, a little, logical inquiry, like Descartes did. You end up with, I am the witness of the mind and the senses and the body, and through the mind, body, senses, I am the witness of the world. World changes, body changes, senses and mind change, but I am the unchanged observer, unchanged, therefore unaffected. Therefore, free of old age, disease, death, the problems of the body, free of depression, fear, anxiety, terror, the problems of the mind. So I am this problem-free consciousness. Why is it not enough? What Advaita Vedanta wants to show is that you'll truly be problem-free when you realize yourself as the infinite, as the limitless. Problem is always there in the limit. If you're limited in time, then there's a beginning and an end to you. If you're limited in space, there is something outside you. If you're, you are in one place and you're not in another place. If you're limited by objects, you are there and there are other things apart from you. And the Upanishads, very, very perceptively, they say that dvitiyadvai bhayam bhavati. From the existence of the other, there comes fear. At the root of everything in this universe is this fear, even desire. Desire is supposed to be the root of everything, but even more fundamental than desire is fear, basically. And desire sort of is, it arises from a particular kind of fear of not being full and complete and secure. And that fear comes by the existence of the other. When we think that there is an other, and we feel that there is another, we see the other. So when we see that I am pure consciousness, and you stop there, you're still left with a couple of things. You're not really infinite. You're not really limitless, because what we have just done is I have isolated myself, distinguished myself, separated myself from everything else and everybody else. The world is obviously different from me, but so is the body, now we realize, so is the mind. And then we are left with this feeling that, yes, I am consciousness, but there is a vast world full of millions and billions of things and people, creatures, all different from me, all other to me. I get the sense, a question which has not been answered is that, look, here there are more than 90 people here, and there are clearly 90 bodies. And if you think a little more, you'll find that there are 90 different minds here, 90 different persons here. So are there 90 different consciousnesses here? If you look at, I am the pure consciousness, witness of this body mind, are there 90 different pure consciousnesses here? So they're all different from me. Even if I'm pure consciousness, there are other pure consciousnesses. And then what about the vast material world? And then what about the question of God in religion? We have not even talked about God. Whole of yesterday when we were analyzing the meaning of Tvam, you. What are you? Who am I? We have not even talked about God. So all of these questions still remain unresolved. The real core issue is we set out to solve problems by demonstrating that you, the witness consciousness, are infinite, limitless. But we have not been able to demonstrate that yet, because we have just separated consciousness, sort of extracted it from its material encasing, and the mind and the prana and the body and the external universe still remain as separate existences apart from consciousness. That's not limitlessness. That's a kind of very limited existence. I'm just this little spark of awareness and everything else is separate from me. If you do that, a modern psychiatrist would say you're looking for trouble. You're alienating yourself from the world, from the universe, from everybody else. It's not going to lead to anything good. Now comes the real master stroke in Vedanta. Let's consider the other term, you, or you are that. So we have considered you, now consider the other term, that, tat. What is tat? Let's remember the source of the sentence, you are that, tat tvamasi. That comes from the Chandogya Upanishad. And if you remember, Shwetaketu, the student, the boy, his father said, "You are that." And with that, he meant that from which the universe has come. Upanishads talk about it as that in which the universe exists, that into which the universe disappears at the end of creation, and that from which the universe emerges again at the start of a new cycle of creation. What could be that? Now, anybody who belongs to any theistic religion, God-centered religion, would immediately say, creator of the universe means God. You see, that from which the universe came. So we are talking about God because the very definition of God is the creator of the universe. In all the theistic religions, wherever God is talked about. Let me make a little aside observation here. Very interesting insight into the nature of spirituality and Advaita. When I say God-centered religions, theistic religions, one might think, is there any other kind of religion? Can you have religion without God? It turns out that you can. And immediately to our minds will come, I know in all of your minds, I'm sure you're thinking of Buddhism. Buddhism is like a religion, it's spiritual, but without God. So is Jainism. It's a religion well known in India, but not so well known outside India. It's a religion without God. In Hinduism, there are strands of spirituality without God. For example, Sankhya does not mention God. Even yoga, Patanjali's yoga, which does mention God, but it's not about God. So there are these two kinds of religion, as it were, two kinds of spiritual quest and two kinds of religion to satisfy these two kinds of spiritual quest. What are the two kinds of spirituality, two kinds of spiritual quest? One could be the quest for God. What is the reality of this universe? What's the mystery here? Is there a God, a search for God? And this, corresponding to this, you have the theistic religions, the God-centered religions. Christianity, obviously, is a great answer. Judaism, Islam, Zoroastrianism. In Hinduism, you have a whole range of God-centered approaches. Vaishnavism, Shaktaism, Shaivism, all of them are God-centered religions. But then there are those which are not God-centered at all. Apart from Buddhism and Jainism, within Hinduism, you have Sankhya, you have Patanjali Yoga. These are self-inquiry-based religions. All of these, their answers are different, but they all seek to find out a solution to problems of life by discovering, who am I? Inquiring into myself. What's the nature of this person who is seeking some relief from suffering? I want to go beyond suffering. I want to attain fulfillment. And this approach to religion says that if you know who you are, if you investigate yourself, you will find that fulfillment you're looking towards. And these two approaches to religion are different. I mean, the God-centered religions, the theistic religions, are generally devotional. They're generally faith-based. In fact, in the United States, religion is called faith. The name for religion here in the West is faith. So it's the God-centered religions are faith-based. You have to start with belief in God. Why do you have to start with belief in God? For the simple reason God is not obvious to us. I don't see God. I can see the world. I can see you. I can even see my own body. If I introspect, I can see my contents of my mind, my thoughts and feelings. I don't see God. So God is something that is revealed to us by scripture, by tradition, by spiritual masters, and then we have to have faith. Otherwise, the God-centered approach does not begin for us unless we have some faith. It starts with belief. In Vedantic terms, the God-centered approach, God is paroksha, remote, secondary. It's not directly revealed to our senses, to our direct perception, even internal perception. It's not. What we see, what is directly revealed, is the world and is ourselves. That's all. God you take on belief. That's the problem with the God-centered approach. That's why throughout centuries, you will find that theologians, philosophers in the God-centered approaches have always tried to prove the existence of God. And notice, nobody tries to prove the existence of ourselves or of the world. The world is proved because you see it. We are proved because we are even more than that. Before we experience the world, we must exist. Our own existence is not doubted. In fact, the philosopher Descartes, in his quest to find out the sheer a sure foundation for knowledge. What did he find? The one certain thing in this universe is that I exist. The most certain thing. Everything else is less certain than that. Even to doubt my own existence, I must exist. The cogito ergo sum. Shankaracharya, more than 1,000 years before Descartes, he wrote, Yaiva tasya nirakarta tasyaiva atmasa. Whoever denies the existence of the self, it is the existence, it's the self of the very denier. To say that the self doesn't exist. Well, who is saying that? I, the self. So that's one thing that you cannot deny. The self-inquiry based approaches have that advantage. What they are pursuing, what they're investigating, there's no doubt about that. So it's not a big problem. Nobody in Jainism or Buddhism or Sankhya or even yoga is particularly interested in proving the existence of God. It's not germane, that's not pertinent for them. But what is the problem? The disadvantage of the self-inquiry based approaches, one will immediately see, yes, I know that I exist. I don't have to do a lot of theological argument to prove my own existence, but my own existence is the problem. It is the problem. I have old age, sickness, death, anxiety, fear, so many problems, lack of fulfillment. All of these are because of my own existence. Now, notice it's there because of our limited existence. I am a limited being. I will die. Therefore, I fear of death. I am a limited being. I have desires, but not enough capacity to fulfill those desires. Even the having of the desires shows limitation. So my very limitation, if you look at it philosophically, is at the source of my trouble. On the other side of the wall, if you look at that, God has no such problem. God is infinite. Whenever we talk about God in any theistic religion, God is omniscient, omnipotent. We'll see very soon. Omniscient, omnipotent, omnipresent, can do everything, has all powers, all glory. If God exists. That's the only catch. If God exists, God is perfect. No problem at all. We are certain that we exist, but we are imperfect. We are limited. Now, let us introduce Advaita. That thou art, you are that. You know what this does? It brings together the certainty of your own existence and the infinitude, limitlessness, problem-freeness, nature of God's existence, and brings them together. The certainty of your own existence negates the doubt about God's existence. And the infinitude of God's existence negates the limitation of our own existence. What Advaita is trying to do is to show that you definitely exist. You are this existence awareness, and it's limitless. So this is very important. This is the whole strategy. You investigate yourself and then find that you are limitless, your problem is solved. Limitless means you are immortal, you are beyond sorrow, you have no desires, you are complete, Purnam. So you have no problem at all. So we are sure that you exist, and you are sure that you have no problem at all. Freedom, moksha, it's done. Right now, we are not there yet. Right now, we know that we exist and we are awareness. But what about the limitlessness of that awareness? What about this external world, which seems to impose a limit on us? It's not me. What about all these other people? They seem to be not me. How do we get to the infinitude of our own existence? We already have certainty. Now we need infinitude. That's where God comes in. I'm giving you the underlying strategy of Advaita, which is revealed by that thou art, what they're trying to do. Why we can't stop at I am just awareness, witness. You can't stop there. In any case, our whole retreat is experiencing oneness. Experiencing oneness. If I am the witness consciousness, I am not the body, not the mind, not the prana, not the intellect, and certainly not all of you. I am the witness of all of this. Then certainly this is not oneness. I am certainly different from everything else. So we are very far indeed. In fact, one might argue you have gotten further from oneness than ever before, because you have separated yourself neatly, geometrically from everything. Now, we come to the God question. So we'll just take a look at some of the verses here, which are based on the Upanishads. You will notice something very quickly. right now, Shankaracharya in this book, Vakyavritti, in order to explain that, you are that, so that, he's going to start liberally quoting from the Upanishads. And we will say, wait a minute. What happened to experience and logic? You're supposed to, like yesterday, we proceeded entirely on our own experience and reasoning. And suddenly you'll see the standards of reasoning have been quickly relaxed. I remember a couple of years back at the Harvard philosophy department, we were studying the philosophy of mind, and we were reading Descartes, the original, the Meditations, of course, in English translation. And first, the masterpiece of when he comes to the cogito ergo sum, I think, therefore I exist. Very neatly, tightly argued. Then he goes on to show that whatever appears to me must also be true. And there his arguments are, well, God is projecting this universe for my benefit, and God is good, God can't lie to me, and arguments like that. The professor said, you all might have noticed, she said to us, we were students there, you all might have noticed the standards of rigor have been relaxed considerably now. The moment you go out there, start talking about God, it's no longer the tight reasoning like I think, therefore I exist. No. And Shankaracharya seems to be doing that for a very good reason. Why? Because God is not directly perceptible to us. So God is revealed. The moment you start talking about God, you are entering a realm of faith. All right. Shankaracharya says in the, I'll just read through the verses and you'll see what is meant here. 28. Tvamartham evam nishchitya tadartham chintayet punaha atadvyavritti rupena sakshat vidhimukena cha. We have now determined the meaning of tvam, you. You are that. We have understood you. We might go, wait a minute. So what am I? I am witness consciousness. Now we're going to consider the meaning of the word that. You are that. So that. And we're going to, we see in the Upanishads, Shankaracharya says, that has been talked about, the reality of this universe has been talked about, the power behind this universe, God, has been talked about in two ways. One is not this, in a sort of negative. Another one is in a positive way. And he'll give some examples. All are from the Upanishads. If you ask, how do you know all this? The Upanishads. If you ask somebody, any theistic religion, they'll immediately go back to the scriptures and the revelations. That's it. There's no other way of knowing except direct mystical experience, but which obviously you can't bring in here. Otherwise, you can't have philosophy. You can't say that, well, God exists because I saw him, and you don't see God, but I saw him, and that's why God exists. You can't say that. It's been divinely revealed. The prophets, it still boils down to that. The prophets or the rishis, they had certain mystical experiences, and based on that. 29, 30, 31. We'll see some negative ways of referring to God. Negative doesn't mean criticizing God. It says what God is not. That is a negative way, neti way of referring. And what God is. Nirasta shesha samsara dosho sthuladi lakshanaha adrishyatwadi gunakaha parakrita tamo malaha. It says, beyond all limitations of samsara, all characteristics which can be given to it. He's quoting from the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. Asthula, Ananu, Araswa, the Adirgha. It's not physical, gross like this universe. God is not physical like this. God is not subtle like our mind. God is not vast, big, massive. God is not even tiny. It's all not, neti. And Mandukya Upanishad says, Adrishyam, Agrahyam, Abhyavaharyam, Alakshanam, Achintyam. It's something that is not, God is not something perceptible. Brahman is not something perceptible to our senses. You can't see it, hear it, smell it, taste it. You can't even use your motor organs to grasp it. You can't go up to it and do namaskar and touch the feet of God. You can't actually, because God is not physical. God is not subtle. You can't even think about God. It's not a thought. It's not a concept. You cannot conceive of God even. You cannot even speak about it. Abhyapadeshyam. So all these are negative ways. You might say, for something that cannot be spoken of, There's a lot of speaking going on. You know? Yes, but that's why negatives are used. You cannot say what it is directly. Therefore, you have to use, you can say what is called the via negativa, that is apophatic method. It's just a fancy way of saying you say what it is not. You can't say it directly, so you can say what it is not. Parakrita tamo malaha. Swami Vivekananda was fond of this, this kind of description of the ultimate reality. Tamasah parasta. Listen, the children of immortal bliss. There is this infinite radiance which I have realized, which is beyond the misery, beyond, forever beyond the darkness of this samsara of Maya. What is the darkness of samsara or Maya? Limitation, old age, disease, death, suffering, ignorance. There is a light beyond all this. So these are negative ways that it's beyond all this. There's something is there, but it's beyond all this. Positively, Nirastatishayananda Satya Pragyana Vigraha Satta Swalakshana Purna Paramatmeti Giyate. He says Satya, it exists. Therefore, positively, what can you say? It is existence. Sat. What else can you say? Pragyana Vigraha. It is consciousness. That Brahman is consciousness. It is bliss. Nirastatishayananda. It is Ananda. At the very least, Satta Swalakshana. It is. The unique characteristic of God is that it is or isness. Again, that beautiful question at the beginning of yesterday's Q&A session, that why can't existence be a predicate? So here it is. It's not a property. It is the reality of this universe. It is. And you might say, well, it is, you can say about everything. The computer is, and the book is, and the mouse is. Well, next is Purnaha. It is isness, but also complete, whole, infinite. Nothing is left out. All existing things, gross, subtle, causal, everything is nothing other than this existence. Paramatmeti Giyate. It is sung in the Gita Upanishads, the positive ascriptions. Now, let me do one more and then I'll stop and do some theory. Sarvajnatvam pareshatvam. This is 31. Sarvajnatvam pareshatvam tatha sampurna shaktita vedai samathyate yasya tad brahmetyavadharaya. It is Sarvajna, all-knowing. Paresha, the Lord of everything. God is the Lord of everything, all-powerful. Sampurna Shakti, all power, omnipotent. Big words. How do you know, sir? When you say, I'm not the body, not the mind, witness consciousness, we can check. We can check in our own experience. But when you talk about stuff like this, it just sounds like God talk. And you can always imagine the new atheists, Richard Dawkins or Christopher Hitchinson, bless his soul. But they will jump on talk like this. They'll say, this is nonsense. What is omnipotent, omniscient, all-knowing? How do you know? So God talk is always based on scripture or revelation. So here he says, Vedai samathyate. I referred back to the Vedas. There is such a reality which produces this entire universe. Now, I'll just stop here and talk a little bit about what exactly is God in Vedanta. What exactly we are. We remember the direct meaning, the Vachyartha, and the indirect meaning or implied meaning, Lakshyartha. The direct meaning is I, this person. Here, this body, mind, name, this personality. What you see, what was that computer thing? What you see is what you get. So what you get is this person. That's the meaning of you. Direct meaning. But when we investigate more deeply, we find the indirect meaning, implied meaning of the word you is consciousness and witness consciousness. That's the real I. Similarly, in Vedanta, what is the meaning of the direct meaning of the word God? The moment you say God, Brahman, Ishvara, Bhagavan, what does it mean? Vedanta says it means what everybody takes it to be. God is the all-powerful, all-knowing, omnipresent creator of this entire universe. But what exactly is God made of? You see, God, Vedanta says, God is existence, consciousness, bliss, Sat Chit Ananda plus Maya. Maya is Prakriti, Shakti, the power of Brahman. That's why it said Sarva Shaktita, all power. Now, at this point, some of you are looking puzzled, and rightly so. One source of the puzzlement could be, didn't we say, I am consciousness? That's what we arrived at, right? I am the witness consciousness. I exist and I am consciousness. But now you're saying God is this existence consciousness. Correct. This is the interesting thing in Advaita Vedanta. That same existing consciousness, existent consciousness, or rather existence consciousness. If there are any Heidegger students here, these distinctions are important. Existence and existence. So existence, awareness, bliss, Sat Chid Ananda. You are that. And that God is also that. But the difference is here. Why am I this little guy if I am the same as God? Well, God is God because that same Satchidananda with Shakti, with Maya, becomes all-powerful, all-knowing, the creator, preserver, destroyer of the universe. With a fraction of that Maya, with a part of that Maya, which is called Ajnana or Avidya, the same Satchidananda becomes just this guy, this one, you, I, all of each of us. It becomes individual sentient beings. The Gita says, Avibhaktam cha bhuteshu vibhaktam iva cha sthitam. One undivided reality appears to be existing in a divided way. Divided way means as all of us, as these millions and billions of sentient beings. You might say, all of Maya and part of Maya, so is Maya divisible? Yes. The Vedanta philosophy says Maya is divisible. Divisible in which way? Just as our bodies are different, physical bodies, our minds are also different, subtle bodies. We also have a causal body, Karana Sharira, which we experience in deep sleep. It's important to connect it to experience. We experience the physical body. We experience the physical world. We also experience our mind. When you look inside, you experience the mind. And do we experience this causal body? We do. It's there right now, but it's not discernible. It is what is experienced in deep sleep, the causal body or the Anandamaya Kosha. Now that causal body is a tiny fraction of Maya. All of it put together, all our causal bodies put together, and infinitely more besides, is the totality of Maya. And this totality of Maya, the totality itself is called Maya. This totality of causal bodies, Maya, is the power of God. It is the causal body of God. Does God have a subtle body? Yes, all our subtle bodies taken together. Does God have a physical body? Yes, the entire universe, all our physical bodies taken together, entire universe. That same so here is the Vedantic idea of God. That same Satchidananda, which you are. But instead of one causal body, one mind, and one body, imagine all causal bodies taken together, Maya. And on top of that, all subtle bodies taken together, the cosmic mind. And on top of that, all physical bodies taken together and the physical universe. If there is this consciousness identifies itself with the whole, with the cosmos, the causal, subtle, and physical cosmos, it is called God. This is the idea of God in Advaita Vedanta. So to repeat, consciousness, Satchidananda, which you are, plus the causal body, subtle body, and your physical body becomes you, the guy, this person. Consciousness, plus all causal bodies, all subtle bodies, all physical bodies becomes God. But you notice that in that case, the meaning of you are that doesn't work, because you are this little creature, consciousness, plus one subtle body, one causal body, subtle body, and physical body. And God is the vast, is this entire universe, basically, consciousness plus this entire universe. How can one be equal to a billion? How can one little thing be equal to this vastness? When you say you are that, how can you be that? How can I be that vastness? How can I, this little creature, be everything? I am not, obviously. So here is the problem. The sentence, you are that, on a prima facie view, does not make sense. And now our job is to make sense of this sentence. You already have a clue as to how it can make sense. How can it make sense? Because we have been saying since yesterday that you mean pure consciousness, Satchidananda, and God also means pure consciousness. If I leave out body, mind, subtle body, and just say I'm awareness, that awareness, if you leave out the Maya and the cosmic mind and the cosmic body, that awareness which is God, that awareness which is you, is in reality, in the implied meaning, same, one and the same. In reality, it is one and the same. And you begin to see here again why the doctrine of the falsity of the world is so important. If the world were not false, if the body's world, external world were independent, separate realities, in that case, you can't leave it out. You can't say that I'll just take the consciousness part of it and leave it out. Then it will be like Sri Ramakrishna says, Ojone kam pade. If you take a bale fruit and just take the edible part and then leave out the husk and the seeds and the skin, and then you say it's not the entire bale. There you are leaving something real out. It might be useless. It might not be edible, but it's not unreal. So to make sense of you are that, or I am Brahman, the world has to be an appearance in Brahman. Or in other words, you can put it in two ways. One is the world has to be an appearance, it has to be false. Otherwise, the doctrine of you are Brahman does not work. Or you can say the world has to be nothing other than Brahman. It is Brahman alone, every bit of it appearing as the world and our bodies and minds. How will we do that? I think we have run out of time. It's time for Q&A, right? So how are we going to do the actual analysis of the statement that I'm leaving for the last session? You are that. Right now, I've done, just to summarize what we did just now, is we considered the meaning of the word that. What is the meaning of the word that? Two meanings: direct meaning, implied meaning. Direct meaning is, the meaning of the word that is God, all-powerful, omniscient, omnipotent, and all of that. And also paroksha, indirect, based on faith. And the indirect meaning, the implied meaning, the real meaning of the word that is pure consciousness, Satchidananda. We have reached that up to this point. And then we will see the rest of it is not so difficult. The whole point of saying you are that is to show you are nothing but God and God is nothing but you. You are pure consciousness and God is also pure consciousness. Ultimately, in that sense, we are one reality. And if you know that, the problem is solved. We will see more of that in the next session. And the actual analysis of the sentence, Tat Tvamasi. There's a little bit of what one might call hermeneutics, an investigation into the meaning and how do you extract the meaning from the sentence. Okay, I'll leave it at that.
Swami, how can we convert the intellectual understanding of the real meaning of Tvam and Tat to be a steady manifestation in our behavior?
Two things. How can we convert the intellectual understanding of Tat and Tvam to be a steady manifestation in our behaviors? All right. Before I answer the real part of the real thrust of the question, how do we manifest it in our life? Before that, let me say, don't be so quick on the intellectual understanding. And the classical teachers would say, if you ask this question, how can I, is intellectual understanding, how can I convert it into something real for me? They'll say you haven't understood it yet. If you had, it would be real for you right now. Suppose I ask you, I intellectually understand I'm Swami Sarvapriyananda. How do I make it real? You will laugh. You'll say, what a silly question. What do you mean, how will make it real? That's what you are already. Every bit of it is you are Sarvapriyananda right now. That is the meaning. If we actually understand what is meant by you are that, what is meant by I am Brahman, if you really understand, you'd say, of course. Even then, the question still remains valid. Even if I say, of course, even if I say, it's perfectly all right, I get it now, still a problem remains. The problem, you see, if the goal was overcoming suffering and attainment of deep, lasting bliss, That is not automatically guaranteed. One may come to a profound realization, breakthrough, and still not come to this, what was promised, overcoming suffering and attainment of fulfillment. So what remains? Well, that is the question. How do I manifest it in my day-to-day life? How do I live it, even after understanding, provided we have really understood it? How do you live it? This is called Jivan Mukti. It is not just realization. This was a problem actually which people faced for thousands of years, and there were books and books on it. There's one whole big book on it called Jivan Mukti Viveka, and an inquiry, the discernment into this phenomenon of Jivan Mukti. Enlightenment and Jivan Mukti are not synonymous. The goal is Jivan Mukti. Jivan Mukti means full-blown enlightenment and applying it in life and being fully free of suffering while living in the middle of this body-mind, in this samsara. That's the goal. For that, enlightenment is absolutely necessary, but two more things are necessary. The two other things which are necessary is pure mind and focused or controlled mind. I'm just translating the Sanskrit terms. Pure mind is called vasanakshaya, and controlled, focused mind is called manonasha. If I literally translate manonasha, it means death of the mind. What they mean is that you must have the ability to attain samadhi. And vasanakshaya means the mind must be purified of the conditioning of desires which we have loaded the mind with over centuries, over lifetimes. Enlightenment itself, what you are saying, I get it. If you really get it, there's a difference between I sort of get it, I'm beginning to understand it. That's not enough. If you really get it, it'll never go away. All these Advaitic texts at least will make perfect sense for you all the time. In fact, if there's a mistake in a text, you will point it out. It's not like that. It's like this because you are seeing it. But even so that is called Tattva Jnana. So therefore, your question is, how do I apply it in life? After understanding that, and you are that, how do I apply it in life? You are asking, how do I actually become a Jivan Mukta? To actually become a Jivan Mukta, you need three things: Tattva Jnana, knowledge of the truth, or what I'm calling enlightenment. Then Vasanakshaya, purification of the mind, a thorough cleansing of the mind, vacuuming of the mind. And then Manonasha, the ability to control the mind and the sensory system and focus it on this realization that you have got. I am the Atman, I am pure awareness, and stop there and stay there, shutting out the world for a while at least. The world appearance, shutting it down for a while. Krishna explains this in the end of the second chapter. This is a portion called Sthita Prajna, where Arjuna asks this question: what is the nature of this person whose, the word you used is very nice, whose wisdom, enlightenment is stable? After a little bit of discussion of Advaita, we come to this question. Almost everybody asks this. I get it, but it goes away. It slips away. Sometimes I feel I'm centered in it, then I lose it. You don't actually lose it. That's a trick of the mind, but we feel it. All of us feel it. And that's why Arjuna asks, with wisdom, this enlightenment is fully stable, it's natural, effortless, what does this person's life look like? How does this person meditate? How does this person engage with the world, withdraw from the world? How does this person react in sorrow and suffering, in pleasure and pain? How is this person different from the rest of us? And there, Krishna indicates, by showing the characteristics of this enlightened person, what are the practices needed to convert this enlightenment into full-blown freedom in this life. The practices are well known to us. It's the same old meditation, devotion, and karma yoga. Karma yoga, bhakti yoga, raja yoga, those ones. However, the difference is, from our side of the mountain, we are climbing up the mountain. So from our side of the mountain, when we are meditating, we are seeking. When we are devotional, we believe and we are seeking. When we are doing karma yoga, it is as a practice towards enlightenment. On the enlightened person's side of the mountain, we are coming down from the peak. So they have already seen, they're not seeking anymore. They have found it, but they are stabilizing it. They are converting their insight into Jivan Mukti. I firmly believe that almost all, just not all, not almost all, but all of the direct disciples of Sri Ramakrishna, after the Mahasamadhi of Sri Ramakrishna, you'll notice the monastic disciples, they went through intense spiritual practices. Yet that's curious, because they already had realization. By the grace of Sri Ramakrishna, during Sri Ramakrishna's lifetime, they did spiritual practices, and especially by the grace of Sri Ramakrishna, they saw these truths. In one sense, they were already liberated, they were already enlightened. What were they doing? What were they working so hard for? And we get the answer from them. Raja Maharaj was asked this question, Swami Brahmananda. Swami Shivananda was asked this question. And their answer invariably was, what Sri Ramakrishna gave us, Thakur gave us, we are trying to make it our own. Which in the language of the Jivan Mukti Viveka means they are stabilizing it. They are making it natural and effortless. They know the truth, but it should be naturally and effortlessly available to them all the time. Or even very simply, the Holy Mother, she put it in the simple way. Instead of all this terminology and subtle discussion, she put it very simply. She gave initiation to somebody, a disciple of hers, Mantra Diksha. And then that, I think it was a gentleman, he asked her, Mother, what if I don't repeat the mantra, if I don't practice? She said, my child, you don't have to worry. It is done for you. At the point of death, Thakur will come for you, you'll be liberated. And she would use that language. Basically, what it meant was, if you get Mantra Diksha from her, you're liberated. The work is done for you. You don't know it yet. And she had given different examples for that how you don't know it, and yet everything has changed for you. At the point of death, you are set free. You'll never come back again. However, she added, Jodi anando chao, tahale job korte hobe. If you want bliss, happiness, peace in this life, if you want the results in this life, then you must practice. So here's the difference.
Swami, understanding of Advaita seems to be limited to one's intellect. So is the path only for the learned and the intellectually curious?
The path is for those who want it. In one sense, you're right. The path is for extremely sharp, razor-sharp intellects, for those who have an intense desire for personal freedom and the curiosity to know, who am I? What is all this? But it's not quite, like being an Ivy League professor. Swami Bhuteshananda ji used to say that Shukha buddhi noy, Shuddha buddhi. What is needed is not a subtle intellect. What's needed is a pure intellect. The difference between them is quite palpable. I have seen sadhakas, spiritual practitioners, both monastic and lay, who have had no particular interest in Advaita, but are very devotional for a long time. They have done japa, they are sincere people, very of good character, staunch people over many years of a simple devotional life. You talk to them about Advaita, they get it just like that. It's no big deal for them. And I have met professors with any number of publications and degrees from Ivy League colleges who are professors of philosophy. Tell them about Advaita, they are doubtful about it. And they have a host of this objection, that objection. And even if all the objections are answered, still doesn't seem real. That's the interesting thing. You can answer every objection. One professor, she was a neuroscientist, very sharp lady. She heard me out. She said, tell me about this philosophy. And I told her. And then she said that, Swami, I can't think of any fault in your reasoning, but I don't believe it. So that's what will happen if the mind is not pure. So mind is somewhere deeply rooted in this world, and therefore it doesn't want to let go. It won't feel real. Yes. So what is needed is not intellect in the sense of a scientist or Ivy League professor or something like that. Rather, a genuine desire for realization. Ramana Maharshi has a beautiful answer to this. Can I realize God? Because if you go to the Advaita texts, they will tell you about the steep qualifications necessary for entering Advaita. There's a very high cutoff. You have to have really high SAT scores, spiritual aptitude test scores. So in order to get into this kind of Ivy League spirituality. But Ramana, so with this kind of an idea, somebody went to Ramana Maharshi and asked, can I realize the self? And Ramana Maharshi said, did you just say I? If you say I, you can realize, you can ask, who am I? Who can't say I? All of us, we say I. And so we should, if you're just curious about what is this I, you can realize.
Swami, what is enlightenment in Advaita Vedanta? Is it nirvikalpa samadhi or something less dramatic? For example, faith that turns into conviction, gained from inquiry.
It is perhaps more dramatic than nirvikalpa samadhi, but it's also very ordinary. It's not as ordinary in the sense of not specific visions, not specific mystic experiences, not even a great new philosophy which we have learned, not even a major dramatic change in our way of life. None of that. It is realizing an already existing reality everywhere as I am that, aham brahmasmi. And everything else that appeared to me earlier continues to appear. The world, if you have eyes, you will see the world. And if you have ears, you will hear sound and voices. Food you will taste with if you have a tongue. All of that will continue. But for the first time, we really know what this is and what I am. And that sets us free. At least from the enlightened person's perspective, that person is free from suffering at that level. Externally, the world will continue to work like that. So that is realization. It's not understanding that there is some Brahman, there is an infinite existence consciousness place, or there's some Atman, pure consciousness within me. Mind uses this kind of language. My Atman is fine, but I am not fine. No, you are the Atman. If you say Atman is fine, you just used the Sanskrit word for I am fine. So when that comes about, you have become enlightened.
Swami, if consciousness doesn't have attributes, why is it referred to as Sat Chid Ananda?
Yes, so Sat Chid Ananda in Advaita Vedanta are not the attributes of consciousness. They are the reality itself. This whole idea of attributes comes from the substance quality view of reality, that we think there are things and things have properties. So there's a brown table. There's a table and it's brown. And it leads to a host of philosophical problems. You come with some people who say only properties exist, like the Buddhist, for example, and there's no underlying reality. So this kind of realist versus idealist debate starts. Advaita Vedanta says that the reality is existence consciousness place. It is not something which has the property of existence. Yesterday we saw existence can't be a property. It can't be a predicate. We saw that it leads to logical problems. Bertrand Russell pointed that out, and Advaita pointed it out long ago. Similarly, consciousness. It seems right now that consciousness is a property because we think of ourselves as bodies having a particular property of consciousness. But that's not really true. Upon investigation, you begin to see that you are consciousness experiencing a body and mind. That's what, if you see, what is a more accurate description? Do you see that your body and you have a little bit of consciousness? If you see that your body, you're already consciousness. So consciousness is primary. It is not a quality. On that are imposed, or in that appear the world and the body and mind and everything. So consciousness, existence, and bliss or fulfillment are not qualities, are not attributes. It struck me recently, just a few months ago, that the greatest questions in philosophy, the three main questions in world philosophy. What are the three main questions? What is real? And the answer to that is the branch of philosophy called metaphysics, or nowadays it's called ontology, which studies existence, reality. And the second question is, how do you know anything at all? And the branch of philosophy that studies that is called epistemology. And the third great question is, what is good? What is the point of it? What is beautiful? How do we attain fulfillment? The third one. So earlier there were several things, several branches which dealt with them, aesthetics, ethics, but now all of them have been put together under one head called axiology. So philosophy nowadays consists of these three main streams: ontology, epistemology, and axiology. What is real? How do you know anything at all? And what is the point of it all? What's good? What's right? What's nice? What's beautiful? And the answers to these three questions: look, what's real? Sat. How do you know anything at all? Chit. And what's the point of it all? Ananda. So the whole of philosophy, the answers to that culminates in this Sat, Chit, Ananda. Even that is not Advaita. Advaita goes one step further and says that this Sat, Chit, Ananda is you. You're looking for reality and knowledge and fulfillment, but you are that reality, knowledge, and fulfillment. If you would know yourself. How do we know ourselves? Well, we're trying this sentence. You are that.
Beautiful. How to differentiate the witness consciousness versus witnessing our thoughts?
That's a pretty easy one, at least to put it in words. Not all that easy to make it a living reality, but it's conceptually the two things are quite different. Witnessing in thought, you can try it right now. You sit quietly and close your eyes and breathing normally. You look inside, you will find thoughts, emotions, sensations. And you say, Swami, just a blank, nothing is coming. Well, all right, you find a blank. This is witnessing. But if you stop doing that, it goes away and you start engaging with the world. So this witnessing, you are not doing it a moment ago, you're doing it now, and you stop doing it, it will go away. It is an action. It's a practice. Good thing, but it's a practice. That's not what Advaita is talking about. One sadhu put it very nicely. And after teaching this witness consciousness, then he's talking to the other monks. I'll tell you in Hindi and translate. He says, "To Mahatma ji, lag raha hai na ki aap sakshi ho, drashta ho." So monks, you now see that you are the witness, you are the seer, and the monks must have nodded their heads. And then the teacher said, "Bahut bade gaddhe mein giroge." You're going to fall into a very big pit which you have dug for yourself. That witnessing which you feel now, I am the calm witness of the events of my mind. That's a practice. That's still the mind. That's the mind now sitting like a good little kid and, sitting still. The moment you let it go, it will run about like the naughty little kid it really is. So that's the mind. That's not the real witness. The real witness is choiceless. It's always there, whether you read one word of Vedanta or not, whether you do 1 minute of meditation practice or not. It's always there. What is that? That you are right now. Say, Swami, either you get it, in that which case it's absolutely obvious to you, even intellectually, or you don't get it, in which case it will be maddening. What are you talking about? You say. What I'm talking about is this. When the mind was quiet and witnessing thoughts, sensations, witnessing the in-breath and out-breath, were you aware of that? Was there awareness? Yes. When it was not witnessing, it was quite busy in the world, sometimes upset, sometimes anxious. Were you aware or not? Was there awareness or not? Was it a conscious experience? Yes, of course. That consciousness, that awareness is the witness. It never goes away. It's there in deep sleep also. What practice will you do in deep sleep? You can't. Even the I which does the practice, the mind which does the practice, they merge into ajnana, and they dissolve in deep sleep. So you cannot do practice in deep sleep. And Advaita claims you, the witness consciousness, are ever shining, including deep sleep, effortlessly so. So that's the witness consciousness.
Swami, we have a minute to answer this question. If you say the world is a dream, how does the enlightened one see it as Brahman?
You can see it as a snake, you can see it as a rope. The rope which appears as a snake. Suppose I tell you, look upon the Atlantic Ocean and see the 10,000 waves. Say, yeah, Swami, that's an amazing sight. Look upon the Atlantic Ocean and see the water. So yeah, you just look at the same thing and you say, I'm seeing the water. It is the same thing. The dream and the dreaming mind are not different. Here is the crucial distinction. It's a stunning little insight if you think about it. We're just now talking about the witness consciousness. I am the witness consciousness. Everything appears to me. I am not that. I am different from that. I am the witness of that. That's what we did. Now I want to reverse it. It's like this question. And it's again, I'm just repeating what a monk in India said. I'll tell you the Hindi and then translate. ये तो ठीक है कि दृष्टा दृश्य से अलग है, लेकिन ये कभी आपने सोचा है कि दृश्य क्या दृष्टा से अलग है? It is true. You, the witness, you are separate from the body, mind, whatever you experience, you are separate. You are the witness of it. That's true. However, have you ever thought that what you are witnessing, those things, the world, the thoughts, the body, is it separate from you? I mean, again, I'll put it this way. You, the witness consciousness, you are separate from everything. But that everything, is it separate from you? You'll say, obviously, Swami, this is a meaningless question you are asking. When you say the pen and the book is separate from the pen. And the pen is, obviously the pen will be separate from the book. How can it not be? Yes, but suppose I say the book and the paper. The paper is not the book. Why not? Well, because before the book was printed, it was still paper. In the paper factory, it was paper. And if you tear up the book and toss it away, recycle it, it will still be paper. It will no longer be a book. So the paper is distinct from the book, but the book is not distinct from the paper. No, none of this book exists without the paper. This book, this one, which I'm holding in my hand. It's like saying the water is distinct from the wave. Correct. The water was there before the wave came. The water is there during the wave, and water will be there when the wave subsides. Water is there in the water vapor. Water is there in the glass of water on your table, which is not a wave. But is the wave distinct from the water? Not at all. Not at all. Now, what Advaita wants to say is, you, the witness consciousness, it is true that you are distinct from the world. That indirect meaning which you found out, implied meaning of you. You are distinct from the world, from the body, from the mind. But here is the great, non-dualistic insight. The world, the mind, body, and the world are not distinct from you. They are appearances in you, and they are nothing but you. In the 9th chapter, Krishna says to Arjuna, 3 verses, 3 statements, each stunning. He says, you see this entire universe? I am not separate from the universe. I am in all beings. That's one. In my form as consciousness, I am in all beings. First statement. So Krishna is everywhere as consciousness. Second statement. It's not true. He takes it back. It's not true that I am in all beings. Rather, all beings are in me. It's like in your dream, you see so many people. Now you can say, I am in all those people as the dreamer. Or you can say, it's more accurate to say, all those people in the dream are in my mind. It's not that they exist and I'm somehow inside them. No, they are all in me. You get it so far? Then the third thing Krishna says is even more dramatic. He says, actually, they are not in me. It's not that I'm in all beings. It's not even that all beings are in me. They are not in me. I alone am. In the dream, with all the people and the things that you see in the dream, you can say step 1, I am in all those people and things because I am the dreamer. And you'll say, no, actually, they are all in me. And third, they're actually not in me. It's just the mind appearing in those ways. So it is just Brahman appearing in these ways. Only because you can say the world is a dream, then only you can say everything is Brahman. Suppose the world were not a dream, then how would you say things are Brahman? If this is a tree and a room and a cloth and an actual body, not a dream, real, then it's not Brahman. But if it is an appearance, the tree and the room and the body and the cloth, they're all appearing in consciousness. Whatever appears in consciousness cannot be anything other than consciousness. Whatever appears in your mind cannot be anything other than the mind. Just like waves in the water, nothing other than water. Ornaments in gold, nothing other than gold. Clay pots, nothing other than clay. Only because the world is a dream, therefore everything is Brahman. Only because the world is an appearance and false, therefore everything is Brahman. If it was not, if it was an independent reality apart from Brahman, how would you say everything is Brahman?